In every corner of Africa, stories breathe, tales buried in dust, whispered through firelight. You're about to hear one of them. Welcome to African Horror Stories. Somali folklore Dhegdheer, the woman in the wilderness. The wind swept across the dry plains of the Sanag region, carrying dust and whispers through the thorn trees. 16-year-old Amina pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders as she followed her family's small herd of goats. The sun had begun its slow descent toward the horizon, painting the land in shades of gold and crimson. She knew she should already be heading home. Everyone knew the rule: never remain in the wilderness after sunset, especially not near the old acacia grove. Her grandmother had warned her countless times. That is where Dhegdheer walks. Amina had always dismissed the stories as tales meant to frighten children into obedience. Every village had such stories. Yet, as the shadows lengthened around her, she found herself glancing nervously toward the distant grove. The ancient trees stood alone upon the plain, their twisted branches resembling skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. A chill crawled up her spine. One of the goats had wandered away. Muttering under her breath, she set off after it. The animal had disappeared toward the grove. Of course it had, because apparently even goats enjoyed making terrible decisions. Amina hurried forward. The sun slipped lower. The air grew strangely still. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed to have vanished. Then she heard a voice. Amina. She froze. The voice belonged to an elderly woman, soft, gentle, familiar. She turned slowly. An old woman sat beneath one of the acacia trees. Amina was certain she had not been there moments earlier. The old woman smiled warmly. "My child," she said, "you look lost." Amina stepped back. "No, grandmother, I am only searching for my goat." The old woman pointed deeper into the grove. "I saw it wander that way." Amina hesitated. The old woman looked harmless. Her gray hair hung in thin braids. Her clothes were worn and dusty. Her face carried deep wrinkles. Yet something felt wrong, terribly wrong. The old woman's eyes never blinked, not once. Amina forced a polite smile. "Thank you." She turned away and hurried deeper into the grove. Behind her, the old woman laughed quietly. The sound echoed unnaturally through the trees. Amina found her goat grazing beside a cluster of rocks. Relief washed over her. She grabbed its rope and started back toward the open plain. Then she stopped. The grove had changed. The path she had used was gone. Every direction looked identical. Twisted trees, dark shadows, endless silence. Panic tightened her chest. "Amina!" The voice came again, closer now. She spun around. The old woman stood between the trees. Impossible. She should have been far behind. The old woman smiled. This time the smile stretched too wide, far too wide. Amina's blood ran cold. The old woman's ears seemed larger, longer, hanging beside her face. Perhaps it was a trick of the fading light. Perhaps. The old woman took a step forward. "Amina." Another step. "You must be tired." Another. "Come, sit with me." Amina backed away. The old woman's smile widened further. The ears continued growing, slowly, silently, until they hung below her shoulders. Amina's heart hammered. The stories, the warnings, the tales whispered around campfires. The giantess who hunted children, the cannibal who wrapped herself in her own ears, Dhegdheer. The creature tilted her head. Then the disguise began to peel away. Wrinkled skin tightened and stretched. Her body expanded. Bones cracked loudly beneath flesh. The old woman's gentle eyes became dark pits. The enormous ears unfurled like giant leathery blankets. Amina screamed. Dhegdheer grinned. Rows of jagged teeth glistened in the twilight. Then she charged. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Amina ran. Branches whipped across her face. Thorns tore at her clothes. Behind her came the thunder of monstrous footsteps. Dhegdheer laughed. The sound echoed across the grove. "You cannot escape." Amina dared a glance backward. The creature was gaining. Her ears flapped behind her like enormous wings. Each stride covered impossible distances. Amina's lungs burned. Fear threatened to overwhelm her. Then she remembered another story. Her grandmother had once told her that Dhegdheer possessed immense strength. But she was arrogant, and arrogance could be used against her. Ahead stood an ancient baobab tree. Its massive trunk split into two enormous roots. An idea flashed through Amina's mind, a dangerous one, possibly the last idea she would ever have. She sprinted toward the tree. Dhegdheer roared behind her. The monster believed victory was certain. Perhaps it was. Amina dove between the giant roots. The narrow gap barely allowed her through. She emerged on the opposite side. Dhegdheer lunged after her, but the creature was too large. One enormous ear snagged against the roots, then the other. For a moment, Dhegdheer became trapped. The monster shrieked in fury. Amina did not wait. She ran, faster than she had ever run. Behind her came the sounds of tearing flesh and snapping wood. Dhegdheer had freed herself. The chase resumed. The grove finally ended. Open plains stretched before her. Far away she saw lights. The village. Home. Hope surged within her. Dhegdheer emerged from the trees. Moonlight illuminated her true form. Her ears dragged across the earth. Her eyes glowed like burning coals. The sight nearly stopped Amina's heart, yet she kept running. The village grew closer. People began noticing her frantic approach. Voices rose in alarm. Men grabbed spears. Women rushed children indoors. The elders understood immediately. They had heard the stories too. Amina crossed the village boundary. Dhegdheer stopped. The monster stood at the edge of the darkness, watching, waiting, her glowing eyes fixed upon the villagers. No one moved. No one spoke. For several long moments, silence ruled. Then Dhegdheer smiled, slowly, terribly, before retreating into the night. The darkness swallowed her. She was gone. The villagers exhaled collectively. Amina collapsed onto the ground. Her grandmother rushed forward. Tears filled her eyes. "You saw her?" Amina nodded weakly. The old woman helped her to her feet. Around them, the villagers stared toward the wilderness. No one slept much that night. The fire burned until dawn.
Years later, Amina would become one of the village elders. Children gathered around her fire, just as they once gathered around her grandmother's. And whenever a child asked whether Dhegdheer truly existed, Amina would gaze toward the distant acacia grove, toward the wilderness beyond. Then she would answer the same way every elder had answered before her. Some stories are created to teach lessons. She would pause. The fire crackled softly beside her. But some stories survive because someone lived long enough to tell them. And far away, beyond the reach of the village lights, something enormous would sometimes move between the trees, watching, waiting, hungry.
That's all for today. If you liked the video, let me know by hitting like. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe for more. You can watch another video of mine right here. See you next time.